And so, when did DJing or when did music kind of become the thing? Sort of like roughly what age and perhaps what were
Yeah.
the reasons?
So at Holy Cross, I was telling this story to someone else on a podcast again recently, but a friend of mine, I still see him, he's a guy named Jason McGuinness, and I remember he was like, it was like my first, and you know, it's kind of like you said, in a sense, a bit like the jail thing. So I've come on my first day, and this guy sat me down, and he's kind of like, listen, you got to pick. There's three walks in life. There's skaters, there's bombers, and there's nerds.
Oh wow.
You know, which way are you going to go?
Yeah.
You know, and I used to love graffiti. And spending the year in Melbourne, Melbourne's got really cool laneways and graffiti, and
Yeah, they're a bit
I
more
think
like
a better
that.
street art scene than Sydney. So
Yeah.
I loved it all, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to be a bomber, you know. And so I started listening to hip hop heavily from about 11 years old.
Oh wow.
Um,
That's
and there was dubbing tapes and
Yeah.
Public Enemy and LL Cool J early stuff.
Oh wow.
And back then,
Yeah.
you know, so I was 11 years old. I've just turned 45. So everything was on vinyl. So I was buying vinyl records. I thought, oh, I could be the DJ. That could be cool, you know. And I always liked the idea of being a DJ from early on then, but I'd never really seen anyone do it, you
Yeah.
know. And
Yeah, there wouldn't be many sort of role models or local role models and people to look up
yeah,
to.
and
you
even
know.
on MTV, like I was saying to someone else the other day, like I didn't know who, like for example, DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince. And then if you saw a video, you knew who was who.
Yeah.
But Eric B and Rakim, I didn't know which was which.
Yeah, I
How
get
would
you.
you know?
Yeah, of
there was a
course.
picture on the cover of the record, but
No.
you know.
There's no Google.
So it was a few years later, and I saw a few DJs, and I saw people DJing more around 14, 15, 16, and I liked the idea of it. But even then, I didn't know any DJs who made a living off it,
Yeah.
and I just wanted to just DJ, and I slowly got some equipment. I actually dated a girl once specifically because she had a direct drive turntable, which meant you could sort of DJ on it, you know.
Yeah.
But you know, got into that and started doing a few house parties and things. And my only real goal at the time was to be able to afford for the DJ and to pay for the records
Yeah.
because the records were so expensive.
Very. Yeah.
And you got the whole story. Yeah, you got the shebang, the whole DJ story.
No.
Oh,
No, I do want.
oh, you do?
sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so that's
It's whatever you want, baby.
Yeah. So
We've
and
got
then
time.
you know, as you sort of go on, you know, you like the idea of DJing at the club. You go to the club, you go, hey, maybe I could do this, you know.
Mm.
And I remember, and you know, it was for Leno. There was a job opportunity at a club he had in like '93. So I was like, would have been like 18. You know?
Okay. But you've done a couple of house parties by then.
Yeah, done a few house parties.
Yeah.
You know, around that time I was like the go-to house party. Any house parties in the city, Redfern, Waterloo, all the inner city, Marrickville. I was doing all the house parties, and it was some wicked times, you know, wicked
Yeah.
house parties. And but I remember trying to get my first club gig, and Leno had this club, and I used to go watch him, and you know, he was a very smooth DJ, you know.
Yeah.
And I always appreciate something from everybody, you know. I used
Yeah,
to
of
like
course.
what he did, and then he had a back room. And there was 2 DJ slots, and there was 4 guys. And then I remember they gave us this big stack of flyers, and they're like, put your initials on the back and give it out to people.
Uh-huh.
And I remember being, yeah, and I left, and I was just like, and I just dropped them. And people got to remember, this is the 90s where it was kind of like,
Pre-everything.
fuck you, like I'm not doing, you know, fuck you, you know.
Attitude.
So I'm like, yeah, cool. And at the time, I felt like I was the best out of the 4 guys they had for this back room, but I never got booked. And I was like, fuck, you know, what's going on? And the one guy who used CDs, and at the time using CDs was like
Big no-no.
big no-no.
Yeah.
And he wasn't the greatest DJ, but every time he played, 50 of his friends came. And I caught on real quick that promoters booked you if you could pull a crowd.
Of course.
Right? So I sort of picked up on that, and I was like, okay, I'd love to be a DJ at a club, but I'm not going to give out flyers. I'm not going to do this. I'm
Yeah.
just not going to do it.
Yeah.
And it's funny because at the time, because I didn't know any DJs that had a career, everything I did was out of pure passion because I didn't think it could be done necessarily. You know, the money wasn't there. It was a different world, different
like a hobby.
economy.
Yeah.
And so I did everything very passionately, but I was like, you know what, if I might just do some mixtapes, and that might make my name buzz a little, and then I did a radio show with a friend of mine, Leo, shouts to Leo, on Skid Row. And we did that for a long time.
Yeah, man.
And between selling the mixed cassettes and the radio show, started making a little bit of a buzz. I mean, nothing crazy like by today's standards, but back then there wasn't really a lot of people doing stuff. Yeah. And the promoters from the Club Chocolate City,
Wow.
a guy named Francis,
Yeah.
he must have picked up one of my tapes, must have heard the show, and he reached out to me, and I got into playing at his club through that avenue. And, you know, the relationship starts a little differently when they come to you, you know?
Of course. Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't like anything was different financially, for example, but it was kind of like they came to me.
Yeah.
And I was kind of like,
you earned it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was a bit more like, sort of knew what I wouldn't do.
Sure.
And
a bit more on your terms.
A little bit, yeah. And things just sort of slowly started cruising from then, from about 98. And the rest of that, from that point on, you sort of know, like, Motto he was the first to do a printed, proper professional mixtape CD.
CD, yeah.
I'd already done a couple of CDs before that.
Mm.
And then the third one I'd done at the time, I did on a proper pressed CD.
Yeah, with the nice artwork and everything.
Yeah.
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 Yeah.